So I want you to think about your first love for a second. Just really picture them trying to remember the exact street address of the house they grew up in.
Oh, that's tough.
Right. Or, try to recall their exact phone number. You might actually hesitate or find that those details are just, well, they're completely gone.
The filing cabinet has just been completely emptied out.
Exactly. But if a specific song from that exact era plays on the radio right now while you are just, I don't know, driving to get groceries, you aren't just remembering that person.
No, you're not.
You are biologically transported back to the exact emotional climate of the year you met. So why does the human brain delete the hard facts, like the numbers, the dates, the addresses, but it completely weaponizes a 3-minute pop song?
Well, that is the core paradox of how we process our own personal histories. We expect memory to act like a secure server storing these pristine data files.
Right.
But it operates much more like an environmental condition. The facts degrade, but the atmospheric pressure of the emotion remains fully intact, just waiting for a trigger.
And exploring that exact trigger is our mission for you today in this deep dive. We are looking at a really, really fascinating, multi-layered piece of conceptual art.
And it's inspired entirely by Taylor Swift's early song, Tim McGraw, right?
Yes, exactly. The source material we have uses one single specific visual image, and it surrounds that image with 4 distinct pieces of text to just completely deconstruct the mechanics of human memory.
It's a really comprehensive look at it.
It really is. It forces us to look at the sterile, the messy, the biological, and the poetic ways we remember the people we used to know.
And the visual anchor the artist chose for this conceptual piece is vital here, because it grounds this massive abstract neurological concept into a very mundane physical object.
Okay, let's unpack this and paint that picture for you. The visual concept from the sources is an antique bronze key.
Okay.
It has an ornate bow, that round part you hold between your thumb and index finger, and the surface is deeply patinated.
So it looks worn.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has lived in dozens of pockets over decades. But here's the thing, it isn't sitting on a table. It is suspended entirely horizontally within an endless, luminous white void.
Wow. Just floating there.
Just floating. There is no door in sight, no keychain. It's just casting a very soft shadow into the emptiness underneath it.
By placing a functional tool into absolute isolation like that, the artist strips away its utility.
Right, because you obviously cannot use a key to open a lock that doesn't exist in a white void.
Exactly. And once an object can no longer perform its primary physical function, our brains have to recategorize it. It stops being a mechanical tool and becomes, well, a pure symbol.
Which brings us right to our own kitchen junk drawers. I mean, it's like when you find a mysterious, unlabeled key in your junk drawer.
Well, everyone has one of those.
Totally. Everyone listening has a version of this floating key. You move into a new place, you're cleaning out a box, and there it is. You have lived in 3 different apartments since you got it.
So you know for a fact it does not open anything in your current life.
Right. But you pause before throwing it away. You don't throw it away because throwing it away feels like locking a door forever, even if you have no idea what it opens.
Yeah, and often you just toss it right back into the drawer. The artwork addresses this specific psychological tension in its first accompanying text, which is titled The Curator's Note.
Ah, right. The curator's note.
Yeah, this provides a very formal, almost museum-like interpretation of that isolated artifact. The curator observes that the key appears permanently detached from its origin.
Its purpose has faded, but its physical presence is unmistakably there. The text actually says, and I quote, "The object no longer grants access, it preserves distance."
What's fascinating here is that specific phrasing. It is so crucial. The curator notes that time gathers silently around the patinated surface.
Right.
The wear and tear isn't viewed as damage, Yeah. It is evidence of survival. But the core argument of this curator's note is that what survives isn't a physical location at all.
It's the atmosphere of a place.
Precisely. The key has transitioned from a physical tool of entry into an emotional anchor, holding the mood of a past era rather than the mechanics of a door.
But wait, I have to push back on that. Isn't preserving distance a total paradox?
How do you mean?
Well, a key is engineered, literally by definition, to remove distance. You insert it to grant access and let yourself inside.
Right, historically speaking.
So by keeping the key, aren't we subconsciously refusing to accept that the distance exists? Keeping it feels like a refusal of finality. We want to pretend the door is still out there, waiting for us.
I see what you're saying, but that assumes the human brain processes artifacts rationally, which It definitely doesn't.
Fair point.
From a cognitive standpoint, keeping an obsolete tool isn't about utility. It is about deferring grief. Throwing the key in the trash forces a definitive psychological closure.
Oh, because your brain has to actively acknowledge this era is permanently inaccessible.
Exactly. By keeping the artifact in the drawer, you engage in cognitive offloading. You let the physical object carry the weight of the memory, so your active mind doesn't have to process the finality of the loss.
So the artifact basically creates a safe buffer zone.
It does. It keeps the memory safe but at arm's length.
But, looking at memory through museum glass gives us a false sense of control. It implies we are safely observing our past from a protected distance.
Which is rarely how memory actually works.
Right. The reality is usually much messier, and it normally ambushes you when you are just trying to get through a Tuesday, which crashes us right into the second piece of text in the artwork, the barfly note.
Oh, the barfly note completely shatters that sterile environment of the curator. It drags the whole concept of memory out of the museum and drops it onto a sticky tavern floor.
I love this part. The barfly starts with this really visceral declaration. They say, most people think memories live in the past. That's not where they hide.
They hide in the mundane things.
Yeah, they hide in smells and background noise. Or, as the text painfully specifies in a stupid sentence someone said once while reaching for a coffee cup.
It really highlights the involuntary nature of recollection. We like to think we summon memories when we choose to reminisce.
Right, like pulling up a file on a computer.
Exactly, but the barfly points out that memory actually summons us.
And the barfly directly addresses our junk drawer scenario. They point out that the useless key understands this hiding game perfectly. Nobody remembers the physical lock.
Oh.
Nobody remembers the architecture of the house. Yet the key sits in the dark for 20 years. And then the barfly introduces the auditory trigger.
The song on the radio.
Yes. One afternoon, a song comes on the radio, and without any warning whatsoever, you are standing in a room that was demolished a decade ago.
The song functions as the missing lock for the physical key. And this leads to arguably the most profound psychological insight in the entire piece.
Oh, the line about the weather.
Yeah. The barfly concludes by saying, funny thing is, you don't miss the person, you miss the weather.
So what does this all mean? If we don't actually miss the person, but we are just mourning the weather, does that mean our memories of past loves are actually completely selfish?
That's a really interesting way to frame it.
I mean, are we just missing who we were in that specific climate? We romanticize this profound connection we supposedly had, but this text suggests we are really just mourning our own past.
It is deeply subjective. The human ego naturally centers itself in its own narrative, When we look back at a formative relationship, the other person often ceases to be an independent human being.
They just become a character in our story.
Exactly, a piece of scenery in our origin story. We aren't necessarily craving a reunion with them as they are now. We are craving the neurobiological state of our own youth.
We want the dopamine and the novelty we felt at 22.
Yes, the ex-partner is just the avatar for that era.
Wow. Okay, but why does the brain prioritize that feeling over the actual facts of the relationship? To answer that, the deep dive pivots sharply away from the bar stool and takes us into the lecture hall.
Right, the third text.
Yep, the Ivy League note. This is where the artwork tries to quantify the ineffable experience the barfly just described.
And the text adopts this dense, highly academic tone. It introduces a satirical framework called AMPT, or Acoustic Memory Persistence Theory.
I love the hilarious meta-joke here where the author writes, as everyone knows, acronyms are important. Without them, academic language would collapse into readability.
It's so true, though. But underneath the satire, the biological mechanics they are describing are actually incredibly accurate.
Yeah, they cite this fictional double one-eyed survey of 10,000 remembered first loves.
It's just such a great concept.
It is. And think about your own survey right now as you're listening. Can you remember the exact street number of your high school boyfriend or girlfriend?
I definitely can.
Can you remember the date of your 6-month anniversary? The Ivy League survey found that participants forgot addresses, anniversaries, and even surnames at massive rates.
Because the declarative memory fails. Declarative memory is the part of your brain that stores concrete facts and figures. It relies heavily on the cerebral cortex, and if those facts aren't accessed regularly, the neural pathways naturally prune themselves. The data literally rusts away to save hard drive space.
But then comes the contrast. The text notes that a staggering 79.4% of those exact same people reported being unexpectedly transported into vivid emotional states by a song they heard years later.
In a completely unrelated setting, no less.
Exactly. The facts are gone, but the song works flawlessly.
Because music doesn't rely solely on declarative memory. Auditory processing has a direct neural pathway to the amygdala and the hippocampus.
Which are the emotional and spatial memory centers of the brain, right?
Precisely. When you hear a song tied to a specific emotional era, the sensory input bypasses the logical cortex entirely.
Wow.
The brain drops the surname because it isn't useful for survival, but it fiercely protects the emotional imprint because recognizing environmental and emotional states is an evolutionary priority.
The text calls this DR, right? Deferred access recall dynamics. The object, or the song, preserves the possibility of opening even when the door is gone.
Yes, that's the formal term they use in the piece.
This is exactly like a computer's background processes. I mean, think about it. You're working on your laptop, and you drag a program to the trash. You empty the trash.
So the relationship is over, the address is deleted.
Right, but you didn't actually uninstall the root directory. That song is a very specific line of executable code.
That's a brilliant analogy.
When the radio plays it, it instantly reboots the entire emotional operating system from 20 years ago. It pulls all those hidden background processes to the front of your screen, and suddenly you are running the software of who you were at 19.
The biological architecture of the memory remains completely structurally intact. It is just dormant. It lacks an active user interface until the acoustic trigger provides one.
Man, that is wild.
Which brings us to the final text, the bridge, where we examine what happens when an artist realizes they have access to this biological backdoor.
Yeah, because if this backdoor exists, then songwriters are essentially emotional hackers. And this conceptual artwork was entirely inspired by Taylor Swift and her song Tim McGraw.
Right.
The bridge section shows us how an artist actively weaponizes this acoustic phenomenon.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text shifts into a real poetic synthesis here. It declares, memory has no fence. It leaves the gate open behind summer.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It goes on, a refrain crosses better than an oath. Signed promises rust faster than songs.
That perfectly mirrors the Ivy League data. The signed promises, the marriage licenses, the leases, the anniversaries, they rust. They are declarative facts.
But the refrain survives.
Yes, the melody survives the decay. It even quotes Rousseau saying that the heart travels without a land registry. You just cannot put a municipal zoning law on where an emotion is allowed to wander.
The true genius of the song Tim McGraw, as described here, is that Taylor Swift didn't just write a private diary entry about a breakup.
No, she wrote a massive pop song.
Exactly. She named it after a huge, omnipresent country music star and pushed it out to radio stations everywhere. The text states that she plants a beacon in the other person's radio.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I struggle with this idea of a beacon. It sounds almost predatory.
Predatory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you are deliberately tying the memory of your relationship to a ubiquitous cultural trigger, Tim McGraw, knowing that your ex will have to hear that name in grocery stores, in bars, and in their truck for the rest of their life.
That is a very inescapable trigger, yes.
So if a refrain crosses better than an oath, is planting this musical beacon a way of refusing to let the other person truly move on? You are planting an acoustic landmine in their daily commute. Is it the ultimate act of emotional sabotage?
Well, is it sabotage or is it an act of self-preservation?
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. We all possess a deep existential fear of being forgotten. If the Ivy League note is correct, that addresses and names inevitably rust away, then relying on someone's natural memory to keep you alive in their mind is a losing game.
They will naturally overwrite you.
Right. By planting this beacon, the songwriter ensures that her specific emotional landscape survives. She forces herself into the architecture of his implicit memory.
Wow. It is an aggressive assertion of permanence.
Yeah.
You are turning yourself into an involuntary push notification on someone else's biological phone.
I love that phrase, an involuntary push notification.
Right. You are ensuring that whenever that specific chord progression hits, they can't swipe it away. They have to open the app. The text says, when you hear this, nature will return, and the X will become nature.
And that perfectly aligns with the barfly's idea of missing the weather. The X is no longer a physical human being with a pulse and a new life.
No, they're not a debt to be paid or a physical reality.
Through the power of the acoustic trigger, the X becomes the landscape itself. They become the humidity in the air, the fading light of a specific August, the atmospheric pressure of the room.
So the visual concept of the key floating in the white void isn't just a metaphor for how we remember the people we left behind.
It goes deeper than that.
It's a mirror reflecting our desperation to be remembered by them. We all desperately want to be the brass key in someone else's drawer. We want to be the object that defies the decay of time.
And the beauty of this artwork is that it validates the strange, disjointed way we experience these phenomena. The Ivy League note's profound conclusion is that the most durable keys often survive the disappearance of the doors they once served.
Right?
It confirms that it is scientifically and poetically normal if you have lost the facts. The physical relationship is gone, but the biological architecture of the memory is forever.
It means you aren't necessarily stuck in the past. It just means your past has an incredibly durable soundtrack. But as we finish unpacking this artwork, there is one final implication to this acoustic theory that we really need to consider.
What's that?
Well, we spend so much of our time thinking about the songs that act as keys to our pasts. We curate our own nostalgia in our own junk drawers. We think about the specific weather that we miss.
Of course, it's human nature.
But consider the inverse of this equation. Right now, at this exact second, someone you haven't spoken to in a decade might be sitting in their car. They are stopped at a red light on a Tuesday afternoon. A random song comes on the radio. The auditory cortex bypasses their logic, the emotional background process reboots, and suddenly, vividly, they are remembering you.
Wow.
You are the weather in someone else's uninvited memory today, unlocked by a key that you didn't even know existed.